So at this point, I should have my binary or decimal number. So now I actually have to do the conversion. So I should ask them which one they want. So let's say, I want to either type BTD for binary to decimal or DTB for decimal to binary. So let's say if you are translating from decimal to binary, type, I'm going to do my quote thing again, DTB, quote, and the quote. So this one matches with this one. And I'm going to do the same thing on the next line, except I'm going to say if you're going from binary to decimal, type BTD. Maybe I'll put a period in here. So input 10101. All right. So now I'm going to read in from the input one more time and find out which one it is. So input is equal to my system in scanner. So scanner dot next line. If input dot equals BTB, I'm going to do my decimal to binary. Let's actually put that comment there. Otherwise, I'm going to do binary to decimal. I could do an else if, which checks for the other one if I wanted to, and then do a final else, which says, I don't know what you're talking about. All right, so this is where we actually do the conversion. Now, keep in mind that everything we've taken so far has been strings. If we go look at the string library, so Java API string, so strings are a series of characters that I can use. There's a variety of manipulations I can do on a string. I can get a single character out of it, a char, the primitive type. I can, so that would be char at. I can get the length of the string. So right here is the length. You can even do things like grab pieces of it using a substring or something like that, but those are the main ones I want to look at right now. So here, if I am doing decimal to binary, I need to somehow convert this into a number. So if I'm going to try and make an int, I have to somehow convert this input, which is a string, to become a number instead. Now, by default, numbers are, well, strings, chars, are ASCII values. So if I go look at the ASCII chart as an image, numbers are actually secretly these things here, 48 through 57. I could grab each individual character and do the math to shift it down so it's somewhere between 0 and 9. But it turns out there's a faster way to do that. Instead, what I can do is we want to use something in the integer class. So there's a utility method called parseInt in there, which takes a string, in our example input, and turns it into a primitive int. So then we're going to want to use the mathematics to turn this into a binary number. Now on the other side, if we're looking at something like binary and we want to pull out one character at a time, so what we can do is we can use something called a for loop to go through it. If we're looking at 1010, for example, this is the 0 spot of the string, the 1 spot of the string, the 2 spot of the string, the 3 spot of the string. So it always starts at index 0, referring to the first letter, the first char in it, and then each one after that increases by 1. So if I'm looking at that particular string, what I can do is I can do a for loop that goes through it. So the for loop basically says, where are you going to start Keep going until you end at a particular spot, and then either add or subtract or do something to your counter. For the binary conversion, we actually probably want to start at this spot here and work our way backwards towards the most significant digit. So I'm actually going to start at the length of my string, which is 4, except 0, 1, 2, 3. This is actually the 3 index. So I'm going to start at input length, which will be 4, that's 1 too many, minus 1. So for this particular number, I'm going to start at the 3 index. If I'm looking at something like this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will start at the 7 spot. There are 8 things in here, so I want to start at 7. Now I'm going to keep going until I reach this guy. So keep going while a is greater than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to want to 7, I'm going to want to go to 6, then to 5, then to 4, then to 3, so on. So I need to subtract 1 each time. The shortcut for that is a minus minus. I could also do a minus equals 1 if I really wanted to. So that will walk me through this string, and I'm going to pull out each individual character. So for example, I can say if input dot char at a is equal to a 1. Now notice that because I'm using chars, I'm using single quotes. Whenever I use strings, I use double quotes, but when I'm referring to the primitive type, which is what this guy is, one single character, I use single quotes. And you're allowed to use 2 equals when you're comparing characters. In fact, you should. So if that particular character is a 1, I'm going to want to do something here. And in fact, I'm probably going to want to do something that eventually leads to my answer. So since I'm converting from binary to decimal here, I probably want an answer that starts at 0. And here, I'm going to want to do something with my answer that has to do with probably a power of 2. So you might think about what the power of 2 this is. This is probably 2 to the 0, 2 to the 1, so on. And you want to do something to that effect and add to your answer to print it out. This is complaining because math.power gives you a double instead of an int. So we have to cast it, which is this little thing here. You basically put your answer in parentheses and then put the thing you want to change it to in parentheses. So now it's no longer a fractional thing, it's an integer, and you're allowed to do that. By the way, those of you that are wondering, caret is not power in Java. That's actually XOR, exclusive OR. So don't use caret, use math.pow. This is your base and your exponent. So I'll leave you to that to finish up how you do the conversion here. Up here, if I'm doing decimal to binary, what I need to do is I actually need to find out the remainder after doing divisions by 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number, and while that number is greater than 0, I'm going to do some math on it. So the decimal to binary conversion, you actually end up basically finding out, do you have a remainder of 1 after you divide by 2 or not? If you do, you put a 1 into the next spot on the binary number. So here, I'm going to want to take, let's see, this one, I'm going to have a string answer. By the way, this thing here only lives within these braces. So eventually you're probably going to want to put either a string answer or an int answer or something to that effect out here. So you can now put your final answer down there. Anyway, if I want to find out the remainder, what I can do is I can say if the number %2 equals 1. What this does is it divides by 2, but instead of giving you back what the answer to the division by 2 is, it gives you back what's left over. What is the remainder when you do the division by 2? So if that's a 1, maybe we need to add something to our answer string. So like maybe answer equals 1 plus our answer. And we probably need an else statement off of that. Then we're going to divide by number equals number divided by 2. And this one actually does the division and then reassigns it back in. So this is kind of the skeleton of what you need to do. I have not completed the decimal to binary nor the binary to decimal equations. You'll need to figure out exactly how you do the conversions. I would look up on Google how you do that. And you'll probably have to figure out how to convert from one to another. How do you create strings out of integers? How do you create ints out of strings? Generally speaking, when you want to create something, when you want to convert something to a string, you take something in quotes and add it to whatever else you want. If you want to go back the other way, if you want to take an integer and change it into a string, you do this integer.parseInt. If you need to convert a primitive type, for example, if you need to convert a double or float to an int, you do casting. This is also true of characters. So if you want to change a character to an int, it'll give you the ASCII number instead. So if I convert the character 0 to an int, it becomes a 48. Vice versa, if I had a 97 and I converted that to a character, so a 97 int convert to a character, it'd be a lowercase a.